Welcome to the Voice of the Cape on 91.3 FM Stereo. Your station for faith, culture, and community. Tune in. Stay inspired.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and a warm welcome to the Voice of the Cape's Matric revision program. Today, the subject we are covering is computer application technology. Now, the program is proudly sponsored by the Two Oceans Graduate Institute, an accredited online platform where you can become a primary or high school teacher by studying in the privacy of your home. Visit www.togi.ac.za or call the office on 021 829 7015.
Welcome to the Voice of the Cape on 91.3 FM Stereo. Your station.
12 learners, welcome to today's lesson on Microsoft Access, also known as MS Database. This lesson is part of your Computer Applications Technology subject, also known as CAT, and my goal today is to introduce you to the basics of databases and how MS Access can be used to create and manage data effectively. Now, I know that you've been sitting in your desks all year long trying to figure out what Access is all about, and at this point your textbook may seem just way too much and it causes information overload. So I'm going to try and break down your past matric year into just a concise video. So let's get started. What is MS Access? MS Access is a database management system, or DBMS for short. It's a tool that helps us create, manage, and use databases. So in simple terms, it helps us to organize large amounts of data so that we can retrieve it easily when needed. In the screenshot, I'm sure that all of you know this interface. This is the start when you open the application. This is the start of your database. So for the next slide, we'll dive into what specifically is a database. Before we go further, actually, we need to understand what a database is and how we can use them effectively. So once again, a database is a collection of data or data organized so that we can easily access it, manage it, and update it. Think about it like a digital filing cabinet, storing important information, or even your clothing cabinet where you have your t-shirts neatly packed with your shirts hanged, and your jeans are packed according to specific colors, and you have your winter jackets and then maybe your t-shirts on the other side. So we store our clothes neatly, and in the same way we store our data neatly onto a platform called the database. So we use databases in our everyday life. For example, social media platforms use them to store your posts and messages, and even schools use them to keep track of student details. Now in the screenshot, there's an example of business cards with, in the first column you have contact ID, the first name, last name, moving all the way down to the email of the client. For the next slide, why should we use MS Access? Firstly, it helps us to organize data into a structured format. Secondly, it allows us to link related information like learners and their subjects. Then thirdly, we can use queries to search for specific information. And then finally, we can create forms to input data, and reports we use to present that data in an organized way. So that is just a chronological explanation of why we need to use MS Access and the functionalities within the MS Access software. For our fifth slide, I would like to break down the key components of MS Access. Number one, the tables are where we store data. It is our point of departure, like a spreadsheet. Queries allow us to ask questions of the data, like searching for learners who scored above 80%. Forms, on the other hand, are used to enter data easily, and then reports that help us to summarize and present our data in a deciphered manner, in a way that's understandable for our viewers or the people who would need to review that data and turn it into information. For the next slide, why learn MS Access? You might be wondering, sitting in class, thinking to yourself, why am I even doing this? Why am I important? Is this going to be part of my job one day? But yes, of course, learning MS Access has a real world application. Almost every industry, from banking to healthcare, use databases. Then secondly, learning how to create and use databases helps you to develop problem solving skills. And then finally, it lays a strong foundation for future learning, whether you go into IT, business, or any field that relies on data management. That is one of the core reasons why we need to learn about MS Access, or learn how to navigate through the platform. Then for the last slide, this is a hands-on introduction. This lesson or this video was just introduce MS Access to you. For the next lesson, I will be taking you through each of the functions within database, showing you how to navigate through it and work through activities. But this is just a hands-on introduction activity for you. So first you need to open Microsoft Access and then select blank database. That's in step 1. Then next, create a table by entering fields like the following: name, ID, and grade. Thereafter, switch the dataset or switch to datasheet view, and start entering the data. Finally, you will create a simple query to show all students with grades above 80%. Now that you've been introduced to the basics, it would be your turn to incorporate these steps. Your task would be to create a simple student information database. Start by designing a table, then enter the data, and then finally create a query to search for specific information like grades above 80%. Remember, students, practice makes perfect, and the more you work with MS Access, the easier it will become.
Welcome to the Voice of the Cape on 91.3 FM Stereo. Your station for faith, culture, and community.
And we will be focusing on creating a table. And as you can see on the screen, we are in the Home tab. Let's just go over to Create, and so that we can be ready to create our very first table. Think of this as your playground for all your data. Very exciting, right? Let's get started and create a table for our, let's say, learner records. So database is already giving us an automated table, which is called table 1. We can rename this at a later stage. So as the automated table has been generated by MS Access, we see 2 fields already. And the first column is called ID. It's like your student number. or your ID number or a cell phone number. It's unique and helps us keep track of each entry. We'll leave this as is because every table needs a special identifier. Next, let's add some fields. Click on the click to add button. This is where the magic happens. So we have a list of fields that we can add. So if we click on the click to add field, there's a drop down with a list of functions that we can use. So let's start by adding a field for the first name. Select short text because names are text after and then simply type first name to rename your first field. Enter. Easy, right? Now let's add another field for the last name, which is the same steps. Click to add, choose short text, and type last name. Great. Now, how about we add the grade? But this time, let's select numbers or number because grades are numeric values. Type grade, and just like that, you are building a functional table. Finally, let's add a field for the learner's date of birth. Click to add once again, then select date and time and name it date of birth, short DOB. This allows us to capture when each learner was born. This is super useful. Step 3, enter sample data. Let's bring our table to life with some data. I'll add a few entries. Like for instance, let's use John Doe, grade 12, first name, John, and then we press enter, last name, Doe, enter, and grade 12, and let's say his date of birth is 2006, and he was born on the 1st of January and 1st. Now, let's give John a classmate, and her name would be Jane Smith. Now, Jane Smith would also be a scholar at the school, and she would be grade 12, Jane Smith, and she was born 2006 in May the 10th, and enter. So now that we have two learners in our records, we can move on to the next step, which would then be to save in the top left corner. As you can note here, change from table 1 to student records. You can, however, change it to whichever name is required in your question paper. Once you right click and then you go down to rename, this will allow you to change the name of the current item. Now let's take a moment to just review what we have done. So we've created a table. It was named student records, changed from table 1. We've added a first name field. We've added a last name field. we've added a grade field and the date of birth. This table now stores learner information in a structured way, making it easy to access, manage, and update. And this is just the beginning of what you can do with Microsoft Access. So, fantastic job, everyone. Creating tables in MS Access is like building the foundation of a digital library for your data. Keep practicing, and soon you will be able to create complex databases that can handle all sorts of information. Importantly, stay tuned for our next session where we will explore how to query this data and ask it questions and get answers in seconds.
Welcome to the Voice of the Cape on 91.3 FM Stereo. Your station for faith, culture, and
Good
community.
evening, grade 12. Welcome back from our previous lesson where we've created the table on the left hand side, student records. Today we will be designing a query in MS Access, and the objective would be to create a query based on the table that we have created. So for the first step, we would have to open the query design tool, and I will just show you where that is in a moment. Think of a query as a superpower, and it helps us to find specific information, and it answers specific questions we have in the database and to get the exact answers we need. To start, we would go to the top of the menu and click on Create. As you can see here next to Home, click on Create, and this will take us to where we found the tables. So just next to the tables, we have Query Wizard and then Query Design. This time around, we will be using Query Design. This will open the Query Design view and show us where all the magic happens. So now on the screen, you will see a pop-up window appears with a list of tables. On the right-hand side, we'll select our table that we've created called Student Records because that's where our data is stored. You would have to click on the table and then click Add Selected Tables. So now you can see a new window has popped up with the different fields or columns that we have created in our table. What we need this information is we needed to add to the fields below in the table. What we need to do is now we'll double click on each of the fields so that it can populate the table below. Let's start with first name, last name, grade, and then date of birth. So you can see all the fields are now populated at the bottom, and we have a few options. We have field, table, sort, show, criteria, or what we will be focusing on for this lesson is the criteria because like I said, as the objective is to only show the grade 12 learners in our records. So what we need to do is we need to focus on the query criteria, and let's add some criteria to narrow down the results. Our goal is to find only grade 12 learners. So in the criteria row under grade, under the grade column, which is over here, we need to type in 12, and this tells MS Access to filter and display only the records where the grade 12 learners are or where the grade equals to 12. The next step would be to run the query. At the top left, you would see there's an exclamation mark that says run. And once we click on run, you'll see only 3 grade 12 learners from the original student record list is shown. We have 5 students in total, and the result is only grade 12 learners are shown in the query. We've just created our first query. The step now is to save the top left, or we can click Ctrl S. Then we would save this as grade 12 learners and then press OK. And you'll see immediately on the left hand side, we now have a query designed only for grade 12 learners. So let's take a moment to review what we did. This query pulled out only grade 12 learners from our entire table. Queries like this are powerful tools, grade 12s. They help you find specific data in seconds. No matter how large your database grows, you're sitting with learners with about 1,000 to 2,000 learners at school, and you can find a specific class within a matter of seconds. So awesome job, everyone. Designing queries allows you to filter, sort, and even calculate data based on your needs. With just a few clicks, you've turned your table into a smart, interactive tool. So next time, we will dive into more complex queries, but for now, give yourself a pat on the back. You are mastering Microsoft Access one step at a time.
Welcome to the Voice of the Cape on 91.3 FM Stereo. Your station for faith, culture, and community. Tune in. Stay inspired.
And that there is the revision lesson on computer application technology. Now, the program is proudly sponsored by the Two Oceans Graduate Institute, an accredited online platform where you can become a primary or a high school teacher by studying in the privacy of your home. Visit www.togi.ac.za or call 021-829-7015. From myself, Kanita Kamar, we bid you farewell, and please do like and share all these lessons with matriculants who can benefit, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Welcome to the Voice of the Cape on 91.3 FM Stereo.